Hello there everybody and welcome. This is a new guide for a classic Dark Culture Necromancer build after the Wolf update. Reworked, remastered, and a lot of fun, a lot of power, and yeah, I've been very surprised how well it works. It is a very in-your-face melee-based playstyle, and at the same time we have a solid backline, firing out a lot of damage, lots of battle magic, but the only thing we don't have are big supporty units, so that task lies on the shoulders of your heroes mostly, but it works a charm. So let's move over to the cultural and racial traits. Since we are working in this build a lot with our cultural roster alongside with the undead units, I went for light-footed, as this is a real powerhouse for shock units. It allows your shock units to just hide behind cover, your own lines, and then just reach into the enemy's face without too much risk. I love this. This is really, really good, and since the Dark Culture has a tier 1 shock trooper and a tier 3 shock trooper, it is just darned good. We are going for White Wolf mounts, as these are upgrading our knights massively with Pack Hunter, and they also have a strange and powerful synergy with our tier 1 archers, which get dismount too. And the Pack Hunter ability is increasing their damage too. Since we are swarming the battlefield with low-tier riffraff, skeletons and zombies en masse, this is actually really good. Enfeebling Howl is more for your melee units, don't use that on the archers. This is not good, but all in all, I went for the White Wolves as I find them extremely synergistic, especially since Enfeebling Howl applies Weakened, which synergizes with the Dark Culture itself quite well, so that's just the reasoning behind that. The Dark Culture itself has Call the Weak. I want to go over this real quick in case you are not familiar with it. We deal more damage to weakened units, and if we hit a weakened unit, we gain a stack of regeneration. Just one per turn max, but all in all, that is one synergy that we're working with, and that is also why this Enfeebling Howl is an excellent skill for the Dark Culture. Now, cultural trait-wise, I went for Chosen Uniters. Might be looking a little bit weird, but we are playing a lot with Whispering Stones as the Dark Culture, because you can generate knowledge out of Whispering Stones. We have here 30 points out of Whispering Stones alone, and with that trait, you can get yourself more Whispering Stones, more income from vassals, which is pretty amazing, and you can also gain a extra polearm unit right from the get-go. Pretty good for the dogs, pretty good. It also allows you to recruit more stuff from the Rally of the Lieges, which is really nice. As you see there, you can have cheap tier 3 units or some specials that round out your situation always quite nicely. I really love this trait, but it is exchangeable if you don't like it. I can also strongly recommend Ritual Cannibals, for example, or Runesmiths, something that fits your playstyle more in this regard. But I can only warmly recommend this trait as it synergizes so well with this build. Gifted Casters, well, is sort of a no-brainer. We are battle mages. The new reworked Necromancers thrive on battle magic so much that this one is just really, really good. As you see there, we don't have a huge mana stockpile right now. We have costly upkeeps, we have a lot of unit enchantments that we want to throw around. Gifted Casters allows you to have a little bit more of an efficient mana budget. But like I said, if you don't like Chosen Uniters, switch it out for something that's feeling better for your playstyle. Now, tomes. We obviously go for the Tome of Necromancy first. A Necromancy build, duh. Aim for Skeleton Reanimation first, or at least as soon as possible. In combination with Soul Collection, this allows you to bolster up your army really quick, as long as you have the mana to sustain the units. Necromancers are the next in line, allowing to either raise your own units after they died, especially useful, since you can that way keep your own skeleton units even if they keel over, and you can also strengthen undead. But the real big thing that I love the Necromancers for is they're able to re-summon fallen enemies as something that works against the AI or the player. Mind you, when you're using these guys, that they always should strengthen the undead and then raise the undead if possible, because these two things go hand in hand. And also, don't forget, you only get to summon one undead per fight per necromancer, so you want to rack up a couple of these. Rotting Explosion is what I used a lot in this build. For one, you can explode the temporary zombies, but you should never refrain from exploding one of your tier 1 skeleton riffraff units, as these are just cheap and available, and it's a huge big blob of AoE that only costs souls, not even mana. Sometimes you don't want to pay these souls, but I can only say this is a really nasty spell. It's a really darn nasty spell. As well as Necrotize. You have that available very early on, and you can put that on an enemy unit for a decent nuke, 20 damage up front, 10 damage per turn, and you get a decaying zombie when they die. Necrotic Magic inflicts decaying from battle mages and supporters. We have both units in ample supply. This is a real nice one. I love Decay, as I think it is one of the most potent damage over time effects, as it is a lot of damage and it counters regeneration. Good stuff. Bring up the soul wells for more souls as soon as your cities are large enough to facilitate that, and pick up Unholy Leader at least up until the mid-game, when you turn all of your roster undead at some point. The other tier 2 tome I went for was Evocation, because I was actually surprised how good it fit. So first of all, Lightning Focus beefs up our battle mages and our supporters. Going for this way in this build, as I felt like supporters are so prevalent and important for this build in form of necromancers, that I definitely wanted to soup them up as well as the battle mages, as the warlocks are just amazing. You see, they have a really nice point target nuke. They can weaken enemies with a ranged attack. They're just what we want for this build. Lightning Blades gives a nice extra smack for our melee dudes, especially since it amplifies the damage against electrified people. It is really nice. Good synergy. Everything we want for it from this tier 1 book. Fulmination is dirty cheap for the amount of damage it does. That's all I can say, as we have the Spellcaster's trait. And Lightning Torrent is a really good world map nuke for this build, especially as we are including a lot of lightning damage, so we deal more damage in the upcoming battle. Pretty good stuff. Should be is recommendable to have that prepared for difficult battles, to let that rain down on the most dangerous enemy stack. Storm Spirits are super nice for this build. They are hard to kill with ranged attacks, and they evolve eventually into Storm Spirits, which are also hard to kill by ranged attacks. So these guys are your replacement for your tier 1 fighters if you ever have the problem that the enemy feels absolutely devastating ranged units. These guys have built-in protection against ranged attacks, and it gets even better once they are evolved. Evokers are really cool, as they get the White Wolf mount, so they benefit from the Pack Hunter trait, so they can dish out more damage than your Warlocks do. So basically your Warlocks are debuffers, whereas your Evokers are raw damage for this build. Tier 2, we head on over to the Tome of Souls. Pick up the Corrupt Soul as soon as you can, as this is, in my humble opinion, the most powerful thing that your build needs at this point. It's a reliable tier 3 unit that you can crank out for relatively cheap amounts of soul costs, and they are just that good. Lots of punching power, destroys enemy morale, there's a nuke there that can kill people or just deal a decent amount of damage. Don't shy away from using that in the first turn, as you see, it is a nuke, and when the enemy's morale goes low later down the fight, the cooldown is back up again. It's just, these guys are amazing. I love them. We got Bone Horrors, which are also something I would recommend to pick up as fast as possible, together with the Corrupt Soul, as these shock units are all we could wish for. They are a cheap side way to get yourself the tier 3 shock units before you have access to your Dark Knights. Consume Corpse makes them hard to kill. Charge Strike, well, that's what our shock troopers do, and Corpse Cage is absolutely amazing, as it provides yet another unit we can torture the enemy with. Soul Overflow is your status effect cleanser, which is also really useful and needed at some points. And Soulbinders, yeah, I love this one. It makes your battle mages hit so much harder. It's a 20% extra damage after they are soulbound, and soulbound dudes drop more souls, and they turn sometimes into decaying zombies. What's not to like about that? Nothing, exactly. So, Restore Undead Army is eventually a way to heal your armies on the battlefield on the fly, which is really, really cool, as we can use that eventually for the entire army. Alright, you can of course add in the soul collectors for your heroes as well, and if you have people that can utilize it, you should, as it amps up the damage even more, and souls are a really powerful currency nowadays for the Necromancers. Tome of Mayhem was the other tier 2 that I fell in love with. Mark of Misfortune is just an amazing fit to our build. As you see here, it goes for several of our troop types. Supporters inflict 2 stacks of misfortune by now, and therefore they are really good debuffers at that point. The fumble chance lowers the enemy's damage profile substantially, as we are already applying weakness. It is a really good combo. Curse of Misfortune allows you to spread that over without smacking the enemy first. So Confusion and Infectious Insanity are utilities that you can here use for a nice siege, and Infectious Insanity is especially powerful against low tier banners. Tier 1 units get that Infectious Insanity quite often, as their resistances are much lower than high tier units. So if you ever see the AI or your enemy field a low tier regiment of units, that's where you can hit this thing in, and it delays those guys tremendously and deals a ton of damage at the same time. Moving over to the tier 3s. We, of course, want the great transformation as soon as possible. We gain a lot of goodies out of that. Bone Dragon Reanimation alone is enough reason to stop or to wait clearing out wonders, the silver and gold ones, until you have access to that. I don't know how often silver wonders have tier 5 units, but as far as I remember, they had that quite often, and the gold ones, of course. All in all, spare the tier 5ers wherever you can. Find them on the on the world map until you have that thing here. Really, it is worth it, as these guys are really cool. They could just cost you souls, they are flying, they have AoE, they inflict moral damage. What's not to like about them? Fetid Legion amps up our weakening game a lot and makes our units more brawny and beefy in general. That's a wonderful enchantment, highly synergistic with the Dark Culture, and yeah, I don't have anything more to say about that. Whiteborn, yeah, that's the moment where we gain lifesteal on top of our regenerative capabilities. That is so good. We are also undead henceforth, so our baseline roster is now immune against these types of debuffs, but also you need to pay attention to the fact that fire and spirit will now wreck you quite hard. I'd even go as far as to say, if you notice that a strong AI enemy you have to fight against has these kinds of damage, or even worse, both at the same time, you probably should postpone the Whiteborn enchantment until you have dealt with these guys. Apart from that, weakness, it's just all goodies. Not more to say about that. Desecrate Structure amps up your soul income in your cities. It is a really good way to spend your excess mana, and Domain of Death and Necrotic Spires are reasons why it can be really hard to conquer Necromance cities. Weakening Aura, of course, for your heroes as well. If you have melee heroes, they really will enjoy that one. The other tier 3 that we're picking up because we are so well suited affinity-wise is Amplification. We have so many good fits with that one. Amplified Arrows is the point where even your tier 1 archers can deal substantial amounts of damage, but they still are squishy, so I would even go as far and say this is the least attractive one here for this build in particular, but heck, if you like your archers, use it. We're more after frenzying focus, as that makes your battle mages and supporters hit like trucks. Astral Blood makes you racial units get more critical hits. This is especially good for your backline, which consists out of necromancers and all those people, and of course your tier 3 Dark Knights. Amplification, Pylon, and Chain Lightning are really, really nice things to have, as we have a lot of nuky things going on. You know, we explode people quite regularly. And at the end of the road, there's Amplify Minds, which is for the Dark Culture, amazing as we can ignore much of the downsides of negative city stability. Resonance Fields, yeah, put that up on every city. I mean, why shouldn't we like that? And spell amplification is one thing. Alone that makes it worth to specialize one of your heroes into battle magic. I think this is really, really, really strong for this build, as we have a lot of nuke spells. Okay, tier 4, yeah, well, it becomes very straightforward from this point on. We go into Reaper, into Oblivion. Reaper provides a tier 5 unit for us, which is just massively powerful. It can heal itself by eating corpses, it weakens enemies, it ignores 50% of the enemy's resistances, and yeah. We also gain Marked for Death, which is a debuff that outright kills people over the period of a time. They just gain damage per turn and lose their moral, and when they die we even get a zombie, so that's nice. Greater Reanimation allows us to give our gameplay of combat summons corrupt souls into the fun basket. I mean, by the time that we hit tier 4 tomes, these are probably not that much of a powerhouse anymore, but they are better than a zombie. So the fun part about that is that it allows us to keep the corrupt souls, or also survivors can be kept as well. All in all, we also gain soul income tools, and corpse consumption is available for your heroes too, but oddly enough, battle magic. I always feel like this should be a combat skill. Anyways, Oblivion fulfills all your insanity dreams, because we have so many ways of inflicting insanity. Sleep of Oblivion takes out a unit for 2 turns entirely and brings them back insane. Ritual of Somnia is an insane world map spell. Preparing that for the later stages of the game is really, it feels like cheating, as you can totally run into the enemy's face and do whatever you please. There will be not much opposition out of that. Summon Living Fog is a nice tier 4 fighter, which is just hard to kill, inflicts insanity. What's not to like about these guys? It's also not really nice to stand in their vicinity. Devouring Void, I love that for sieges, as this stuff, you plot that back into the enemy lines and yeah, it's just doing its job. Fog of Insanity, that's the stuff that we use to defend our cities with. And yeah, Eternal Lord, I don't think I need to go over this. This is just a Necromancer's wet dream. Okay, strategy part. We want, as early as possible, a couple of Dark Warriors and Pursuers. These guys are here for the damage, and these guys are here for the debuffs. The skeletons that you will recruit out of the combats that you fight, these are only filling material. These are less than units to you in this build, because they are worse, objectively worse than any of your recruited units, and they are here to keep your banner full with units, and you can explode them whenever you need them to do something really useful via Rotting Explosion. Or you can put them into the way if the enemy needs to be stopped at some point. But what's really important to stress out is these skeleton people, they are not the valuable parts of your army. At any point where you can replace them with something better, do so. You will never regret it. But the big benefit out of that strategy, if you go for it very early on and summon skeletons as many as you can until your army is full, is the fact that you have stupidly fast a full 3 banner army. And that alone allows you to do so many shenanigans out there. Of course, the usual rules of gameplay apply. Tier 2 rush of the Town Hall is amazing, as the Warlock is so infinitely much better than the Pursuer. I mean, these aren't bad due to the White Wolf bonuses. They are really good at weakening people, but I personally like the Warlocks more. Night Guards are amazing damage dealers in your roster. They are hitting quite hard, they debuff the enemy if they end their turn next to them, and there's a lot of things to like about these. All in all, the tier 2 rush brings you the capability to get yourself interesting units. As soon as you have unlocked them via the spellbooks, get yourself 2 to 3 Necromancers at least. These guys change the tide of battle so much. Evokers, well, if you want more damage, pick Evokers. If you want more weakening gameplay and you want to filter out your pursuers out of your system, pick more Warlocks. I'll leave it up to you. I just want to mention that the Pursuer has, at the end of the day, a lot of HP, just 5 less than the Warlock, and not that much more defenses. The Warlock has a little bit more defense, but it is highly comparable to one another. Anyways, the Dark Knight is basically the pinnacle of your shock troopers, but you don't need to rely that much on them until the later stages of the game. You have so much access to other external sources of units that these guys can wait until the later stages of the game. Usually I run only one or two of these as a high priority burst damage thing. You see, they can charge up their attack for plus 60% damage. You can use the Pack Hunter trade. You encircle somebody first, so you weaken them first. These guys can really burst somebody out of their shell, and that is their primary job. Eventually, the rule of thumb that I go for is I try to replace all my Dark Warriors in my roster eventually for Dark Knights, as these guys are just the little brothers of these dudes. End of the line. Not much more to say. So, when we check out things here, you see I have a lot of heroes and just tons of offensive things. There's almost no supports in here, as we have no native access to these. I did still recruit myself a Soother out of the whenever I what, that's not the Soother. I don't know where the Soother went, but I did recruit myself a supporter from an external source, and whenever the Rally of Lieges offers you some, it is strong to pick them up. It is just, for my personal impression, so important for this build to pick the tomes offensively like we did, that there has been not much room for support. If you struggle with this type of gameplay, I want to show you an alternative path that works really well too. It just has less damage but more tanking capabilities. You could swap out Evocation for Faith, offering you an insanely powerful healing spell via Staves of Mending. You gain access to Chap Lanes, which have a stupidly powerful power up for damage. They have Burst Heal, and they fit into your game plan excellent. All the other things in the Tome of Faith aren't bad either. If you don't like that either, you can also swap out the Misfortune Tome for Fey Mists. Works pretty decently too, as Staves of Mist gives us a soft heal, but Clinging Mist, in combination with Fey Touched, gives us amazing amounts of buffs just randomly being applied, and our defensive profile is growing as well. You can use both of them if you'd like to, but I personally felt like this build works out really decently with the low amount of support that it has, out of the simple reason that if you play with the idea that your target is always to kill somebody on the enemy side to resurrect them, and always try to put the skeletons or whatever expendable troops you have up front of the enemy line, you will always gain the upper hand eventually, because you can just swarm out so much stuff down on the enemy. There's a really high need to point on Baneful Curse. This spell is one of the most important things. It is cheap, it debuffs the enemy's resistances, and it opens up the extra damage bonus via Weakened, so you should really consider using that early on a lot too. Yeah, what's left to say? You start out a little bit weak in the first tier 1 tomes. Don't try to break out any big wars against other people in this time, because I think you can be easily toppled over. But the moment you have access to the corrupt souls, that changes just immediately, because that is just the point where you can flick out so many good units that you can easily take over the enemy. Due to that, it is important to power play on the knowledge aspect. Luckily, this build allows you so much to do so. The Dark Culture itself is already really good at providing structures that give a extra knowledge income. We gain extra knowledge for imprisoned heroes, so consider hunting heroes. And we have that whoops, wrong button. We have that wonderful all-seeing combination with where is it at? With Court of Whispers, which allows you to put Whispering Stones onto enemy vassalized cities. So this is the point where you can't just put even these things into cities that you have already vassalized. You can't put it into war parties. But all in all, this is so much science this way. You pick up this one, and then you just pick up more and more Whispering Stones. Once you run out of cities to put Whispering Stones into, declare war to somebody, conquer a city, vassalize it, and put a Whispering Stone afterwards in, because Court of Shadows allows you to. So, yeah, that is just an insanely powerful thing, all in all, and I hope you enjoy it. Also, don't forget to use Death Magic, because at that point, your magic ends only if your mana and your souls run out. Enjoy the build. I really, really love this one because it feels very much like a classic Necromancer experience. You are reckless with your units, you explode your skeletal minions to just resurrect them again after this battle, and it works so darn well without relying on the regenerative and supportive traits that I fall back onto in so many builds. This works especially well due to the Dark Culture's internal regeneration mechanic as well, so try it out. It is surprisingly good. And like I said in the beginning, if you struggle with staying alive, swap out Chosen Unitas. It works decently well without. Pick up Ritual Cannibals, and you should be able to fix up your units with that much better. Okay, thanks for watching, you all. See you all on the next video. Drop me your comments, leave me a thumbs up, and consider subscribing. Check out the description box. You will find a lot of cool links there to my Discord, to my Twitch, and of course Patreon, PayPal, and Buy Me a Coffee are waiting for you. You can also check out my channel membership system, and all that being said, thanks if you support the channel, and thanks for watching this video up until this very moment. I hope you had a good time, and see you all on the next one. Bye bye.